Alright everyone, so the New York dataset, the taxis. Previously we built this as part of it was a 4-week data video in terms of going through the basics, pulling the data in. But it was worth having a look at it, making some changes, tweaking it. And this is kind of something that you'll hit a lot in the world of work and with Power BI. So you'll find that you've written a report pack or you've built something, you'll go away and get on to the next project, and then at some point you have to come back to the first one, make some tweaks, do with it. What does that look like? How are we progressing it is kind of the question. So let's go now into the Power BI service and see really where are we now with it and what does it look like. Alright, so here we are, okay? This is our library that we've built, that I've built up while we're away. Because what we needed to do was we need to be able to go in and pull in each month as it became available. Now from looking at the New York data, there's nothing for 2021 yet, so we're stuck at the end of 2020. Okay? But what I was doing originally was I was downloading the CSV file, putting it onto the OneDrive, and then loading it up. And I was like, well, that's not really going to work, is it? That seems a bit daft, doesn't it? So what I've done, I'll go into this one just to show you what we've done, is I've written one, and I've just done one, which is pulling in normally 4 months, but for 2020 with the volumes being lower, I thought, well, we'll try doing it across 6 months, and if it fails we can do it across 4. It worked with 6, the rest of them though are 4, so you can kind of see. And all I've done was to prepare a function. Okay, so if I have a look at the steps that we've gone through, you can see from the source, and this is the tweak, this is the change that you need to do to set up the data flow. So if we click on there, you can see I've just created a table and I've put in the file names and I've manually keyed those in. Right, so once got the file name off the website, pasted it into here. Okay, you don't need to validate them. All we need to do is at the start of each one is just go change the month and change the year. So because all we're doing is changing the month and year values, that's all you need to do. Change those values. Next year it'll be the same. It's changed the year values, and then all I'm really doing is adding a new row at the bottom until I get to 4. So I was kind of, you could automate it, yeah. I could put a function in saying like minimum, maximum, and then it would produce the file names, and I thought, well, that'll do it, but that's going to take me 10 minutes to do, or that'd probably take me 2-3 minutes to do, wouldn't it, versus the 2 or 3 minutes per one. So I probably would be quicker doing it that way. But in terms of this, I thought that'll work. You know, we can always do another iteration for that. To be honest, I was expecting to have a difficulty in terms of that I was going to have to tweak the function between these, which is why I went with that as a, well, we'll just do this. Not having to tweak the function has made a big difference. In terms of the function, what's the function that we've got written for this? What it is unfortunately you've got in Dataflows, you don't see the function of the function, as it were, or you don't see the table source that goes into it. Well, let's see if it's still there. I think it might still be here. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, it is. Okay, so we've got something that's going away, and actually what we're doing to connect is we're using this. So we're using a connection to Amazon. So this is in Amazon AWS as the connection point. So that's the point that the data flow is going to connect to, and then using relative path to deal with the file name that we're putting into it. And when I was checking through initially, it seemed to be pointing to a different AWS location. It's worked for 2017 to 2020, so I'm clearly made a mistake somewhere, which I can live with. And then it's just pulling through the CSV, With CSVs, one piece of advice I'd give you is you might find you have issues with this piece that it puts in columns, right? If you've got something that changes columns or something that's dynamic, you might want to remove that. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. Okay, especially because the first step you're going to do with that is promote. Yeah, so you're going to promote something up to be the header and then get rid of it. This, obviously, it's fine, it's worked. And what this does, it's going direct to AWS, reading the file in, processing each file, doing some basic steps with each file. Okay, and we're not doing many steps with it, so we're getting the hour out from the time for it. We've actually dropped those later on, and splitting the date time values for this up, so we just get the date and the times or the hour separately. I don't think we really care about the minutes that someone's picked up, do it? It doesn't really make much difference. And then we've done some column type changes, reordered the columns just to make it a bit easier. And the end result is that if we click on here, we can see we've got pickup date, or pickup time of day, drop off date and drop off time of day, number of passengers, the trip distance, and the data quality and trip distance is proven to just be shocking. So I'll show you where I am, but I'm thinking I might just drop it. And then we've got the pickup location and the drop off location, and these are IDs, that's how it ships, a tip amount and a total amount of the fare. So if we come out of here and hit cancel, right, each of these is separate just because they take time to refresh. So if we have a look here and look at the refresh history, this small one took 31 minutes, right? So it's about 5 minutes per file for this. I've had some of them which were taking a lot longer. So I had some taking an hour or so. So it's kind of, there's some issues with that. The nice thing with Dataflows as well, though, is because effectively they become a table of data in their own right. So we're not having to re-download, redo anything as far as Power BI is concerned. These are static. So if there's an issue with any of these, I can go in, open the specific one, have a look at it and see, here is the issue, this is where we need to make the fix. And that way we know everything's going to keep working and be fine. So now I've done all that, the last piece to do was fix the locations. And again, it's something similar. So if we go into the locations, let's edit this. Tell you what, let's stop zooming in. Right. What we've got here, now we need to zoom in, right, is a list of locations. And again, if we scroll over here, we can see the source. It's just straight CSV file being read in from the location. There was no point in doing anything else with it in terms of the relative path. It just didn't make sense. It's just one thing. Okay, now this is loaded, never really loaded again unless New York radically changes and does stuff. I'm guessing it probably won't. I wouldn't want to automate this change, this place or this either, because one of the things that you'll find that you're happening is this ties to a shape file, which is the important thing. So any changes here you'd really want to be aware of. Okay. What we've then got, and this is the piece I've added, is I've put in this conditional column to find out if it's an airport. So if it contains airport in the zone name, you're an airport. Okay? Because there's 3 airports in New York, and it'd be nice to be able to compare airports and see what's going on. Okay. So we've done that. So now the next thing was just to load all this into Power BI. So I've done all that, right, and we had some fun with this stuff. Tell you some of the. Let me show you this in terms of the amount of data that we pulled through. Right, this is a screen grab I took as it was building it. So 45 gigabytes of data went through and pulling through. Again, it's partly because of the way it is, having to download it all to my desktop to then process it. That's kind of the nature of Power BI. That's where being able to use Power BI or Dataflows as a direct query source might make this better. But to do that, I'd probably have to amalgamate and combine everything together. So you kind of swings and roundabouts. The net result, the file name or the file size that I've managed to build is actually reasonably good. It's about a gigabyte, so it's about where I was expecting it to be. And if we have a look at what's going on with that file, as we've built it so far, right, is I've identified there's an issue, definitely with the import. So between September and December, which is spookily a 3-month window that matches a 3-month window in our import, it seems to be doubled up. So it looks like something's going on there where it's doubling up in that script. So I'll have a look at it, or I might just refresh that one. Well, I'll have a look at it and then refresh that one set of data, and then we can refresh this full file and see if that fixes it. Okay. What that's got then is it's come back with 352 million rows of data. I suspect if we drop that back down, so it's around, what, 6 million, so 18 million. So we're around where we were, 330 million rows of data, which is probably about right, given that we know that 2020, we can see, was just a bit of a, wow, tank of a year. What we can see as well is, say, the tip percentages have really dropped. Okay, I've written the measures, I've written some measures to get us started, and we're starting to model this and shape this all up properly for it. One of the things I have done is I've dropped the journey table from the dataset, because if you're doing a good fact table, which if you're doing this many rows, you've got to have a good fact table, there shouldn't be anything in it that you're actually referencing in anything that you're doing, because you've got your measures and you've got your dimensions, which, as I say, if it helps you to think of it as a pivot table, and your columns or your rows are your dimensions, and the bit in the middle is your facts. So that should always be measures, isn't it? They're aggregations that you do. So we've got our aggregations here. We've got our pickups. We've got journeys. We've got journeys, which is just a count rows. We've got pickups, which is the count rows with the use relationship clause. So we're going to use the pickup ID, tip percentages, and the total fares, the total tips, all that kind of thing. So we've got a basic grasp already. So what I can start to do now is to start to go through and say, right, how would I replicate? And that's what we'll do in next week's video. How would I start to replicate the report content that we had before to show that we haven't lost anything with our changes? Because the goal of anything like this is not to lose, but what you'll find is there's going to be changes. So my measure names might be different. Other things might be different. And when I connect a report, which is one of the things that you should be able that we'll do next week, and it is that report will go, I don't like that bit, but you need to understand where the changes are going to be so that you can then remap them and have your report work. So what do you reckon then? What we've done is something that it's incredibly common when you're doing this, is we've remapped things to a better, more efficient source. So we've gone from it being that manual step of pulling everything down to the step where it is all built pulling directly from AWS in this case. So what I was looking to do before I went to production, for example, would be to put in place the parameters in the query stack so that we could then turn around and say, next time you just have to put a start month and an end month in, and it will and a year, and it will build the file names itself. Right? Potentially that's easy enough. Well, not potentially. I know that's easy to do. It's just a case of deciding, is that something that there's value add in doing it? And as I say, when I was worried that it was going to be a different URL for the parameter, it was a case of, well, is this going to work? Is it different? Are the file names going to change? But when we've done 3 years or 4 years even, and it's all been the same, I'm like, well, yeah, I probably should have done it. So I'll take that on the head. That's my fault. I was expecting one. No, I'm not going to work. And I'll investigate what's happened with that September 2019 to December 2019 piece. But so far, this is looking excellent. It's pulled through. It's no problem. And we're at the point now where the update or the next month process is a case of open up the data flow. If it's on 4 months, which a normal year it should be on 4 months, or less than 4 months in the data flow, add a line to the bottom, copy and paste it, change the month name. It's not too bad. when it comes to saying, well, I've got to start a new one, all I'm really doing is going, I want to clone that data flow, export it, import it, go into it, and change that table. So it's just going to one. It's not a massive like, oh, I can't do this, it's really hard. It's a case of that simple. Whereas my steps at this point, before we promote this to production, are go to AWS, download that file, then copy it up to OneDrive, wait for that file, which is 500 megabytes, to upload, to then bring it into Power BI. It's just, you're just thinking like, oh, okay. So it's already much quicker, much more efficient. It's just a case of now working through and saying, right, are we doing the right thing? So as I say, don't forget, head on over to geordieintelligence.co.uk, become a member, support the channel, subscribe, like down below, help the YouTube algorithms to see that we're a good channel full of great content and good stuff. And of course, have yourselves a great weekend. Ta-da.